Hi guys, my name is Dee and welcome to my discussion about The Walking Dead. And the reason I'm deciding to make one of these webisodes is because I was actually asked by a few people. I do a lot of going from different Walking Dead websites because I am like an uber Walking Dead fangirl and I love to talk about it and to discuss the different nuances and give people's takes on it. So I go to the Walking Dead Facebook page and the Walking Dead official page and different fan pages or entertainment sites that talk about The Walking Dead, and I am frequently on those websites. And a lot of people find me more approachable because maybe they have a question that's been asked a gazillion times, like the most recent question of who's the hooded dude with the zombie slaves, and I guess they get yelled at quite frequently because it can be frustrating when you answer the same question a million times and the answer is just a few pages up, and but a lot of times people do take it like a big proverbial middle finger to the person who innocently asks, not really realizing that they can go back and read it. And usually I'll try to be a little more helpful. So people private message me or send me emails or whatnot and try to get my take on things. And somebody suggested that I should do this to help out other fans who maybe have the same questions but don't want to get yelled at for asking in case it was asked a million times already. And so here I am. Anyway, I want to get right into it, and I hope you read the disclosure before the show began because there are going to be spoilers, and I am not affiliated with anybody who works for The Walking Dead or who's ever been on The Walking Dead. I'm just a big fan of The Walking Dead. I've read some of the comics. I haven't read the entire series. The series is ongoing. It hasn't been completed yet, and I don't think it's going to be completed for a long time. I think he wants to make this the longest running zombie comic that there is out there, and I hope he does because they're really great, and I just want to see them go on forever because they're just awesome comics. And but I've read quite a number of them, and I'm still working my way through them, and I've seen every episode of the first 2 seasons. So like I said, people come to me with certain questions, and I guess that this would be a good time to answer some of those. I'm going to get right into it because I don't want to make this a very long webisode, but just so you know, if there is ever a question that you do have that maybe you're afraid to ask on a website because you don't want to get yelled at if it's been asked before, or maybe if you want a spoiler and you just kind of want to know my take on something that maybe you didn't understand in the series, or maybe something you didn't understand in the comic and you just want to see what my take on it is. Because sometimes, I don't have all the answers and maybe my opinion isn't right, but it's a different outlook on certain things. So feel free to email me here, send me a private message on YouTube, or here is my Facebook page. Friend me on Facebook and you can ask me, send me a private message or post it on my wall. And if I ever do another webisode, maybe I'll discuss it then. So let's keep in contact. Anyway, let me get straight into it. Again, I don't want to make this too long because I don't want to bore the heck out of you guys. And I'm just going to go into the first question that I get asked a lot privately, and that is, should I get the comic? A lot of people really want to know, is the comic worth buying? A lot of them say, I'm not really a comic book person. It's not that I don't enjoy comics. I'm just never really been a comic book reader. I like graphic novels sometimes. Like a lot of people say they like the manga from Japan, but they're not necessarily an Americanized comic liker. Or they just don't like comics in general. And a lot of other people who do like comics are worried about spoilers. So let me just put it this way. Yes, you should read the comic. We wouldn't have the awesome series that we have if it wasn't for the comic. And now for those who maybe don't like comics or maybe not Americanized comics, like I'm very big into Japanese manga. I love Japanese manga, but I really do love this comic because it reads more like a suspenseful, action-packed, scary novel rather than an actual comic. It's really well illustrated, it's really well written, and it's just, I absolutely love it. I myself have never really been, like I said, a big comic person. I love Japanese mangas, but I never really read like Superman and Batman and those superhero comics and everything. It never really was my speed. I stuck to more of the girly things, like in the Japanese, I like Fruits Basket, which is a very, very girly kind of a manga comic, and so I kind of stuck to that side. And I wasn't really a huge zombie fan until my brother and his wife really got me into this actual comic, but I'm a big fan of the Walking Dead comic. It's not my style of comic that I would normally be interested in, but I absolutely love this. So yes, you should get it. And if you want to get more bang for your buck when you're just starting out, because there are a lot of issues that have been released, go for Compendium 1. Compendium 1 is issue 1 through 48. And that takes you, actually, since we're coming up to season 3 in October, it's going to take you well into season 3, which is going to be the prison arc. And maybe if you like these and I get to do another episode of The Walking Dead chat here, I could talk a little bit more about the prison arc and everything that's coming up for season 3 that I know of or that's been rumored. But this will kind of be, it's almost like a guide. It'll kind of guide you through the past seasons that we just went, the season 1, season 2 that's now passed, and kind of guide you into what's coming up for season 3, because this takes you from the very first episode that we saw on TV, and it takes you through the prison arc, which we're going to be seeing in season 3. And like I said, it's issue 1 through 48. If you bought them individually, it would be really expensive. If you bought the smaller compilation books, it's still pretty expensive to get all of them up to this point. It's about $60 retail. On Amazon.com, where I got mine, I got a discount. I paid about $40 some plus shipping for this book, and look how thick it is. I mean, it's huge. You can also find people that are selling it used on Amazon.com, or you can maybe even find it just a little cheaper used on eBay. Again, if you're using eBay, look at the rating for the sellers to, make sure you're buying from a trusted seller. And but you'll get more bang for your buck, because like I said, it's expensive to buy the individual sets, and even the small compilation sets to get from 1 to 48 is a little more pricey than if you buy the big compendium. So if you're just starting out, I'd really recommend this. And like I said, it's really good. It's really well written. It's really well illustrated. It just kind of plays out like the series, and it kind of plays out. It's very intense, and even if you're not really a big comic book nerd, you're still going to really love this. I really do recommend it. Now, as for whether or not it's going to be a big spoiler for you, that's a little bit harder. It's a little bit of more of a touchy subject. I can't say no, because there are going to be spoilers. I mean, let's kind of let's look at season 1 and base it on the first couple issues of the comic. Season 1, we know that Rick and Shane are partners in the sheriff's department, and that Rick gets shot by a perpetrator, and he goes into a coma, wakes up into this zombie world, and all hell breaks loose. And he meets Bicycle Girl, which is the zombie that's in the grass by the bicycle, and she's only like the upper part of her body. She doesn't have any legs or anything. She's just kind of crawling around, And then he meets Morgan and Dwayne, which is the father and son, and Dwayne is the one who hits him in the head with the shovel. And then he goes off and he finds his family, and his family's in this group, and that's when he meets Shane again, and he sees Shane still alive, and he meets Daryl and Dale and Andrea, and all of basically the group that we've come to know. And that's basically how it happens in the comic, minus a few differences that I will explain when I talk about why it's not really much of a spoiler. So a lot of times things from the series are going to be they're going to pick and choose things from the comic, and they're going to kind of follow the comic. For example, they did say that they are going to follow the comic when it comes to the jail arc, the prison arc, but they are going to take deviations, meaning they're going to go in their own direction occasionally and create these stories that don't happen in the comic. So, but yes, there are going to be spoilers. It's not going to be 100% spoiler free. But as a fan of both the show and the comic, I can say that the show is constantly surprising me with different things. For example, let me tell you a little bit about Sophia. We all know about the big search for Sophia in the beginning of season 2. And in the end, they find her at the farm. And everybody, including fans of the comic, we were hoping, yeah, she's going to come out of that barn, because they're making it so dramatic. Someone else is going to emerge from that barn, and it has to be Sophia, because, I mean, why would it be so dramatic all of a sudden? But everyone thought maybe she got to, way up high where the zombies couldn't get at her, and she's going to come out all disheveled and starving, and maybe her clothes are ripped, and she's going to be scared, and she's going to run and hug Carol, her mother, and everything's going to be good again and everything. And then the zombified Sophia walks out, and everyone's jaw just drops. I mean, I watched the episode alone, but I could actually feel all the millions of people that are watching the show, and I could just feel their eyes drop, or their jaws drop, and their eyes just well with tears. And it was a very dramatic and emotional scene, even for comic book readers, because in the comic book, up to where I've read, Sophia's still alive. There was never a search for Sophia. That whole scenario never happened, and Sophia's still alive. In fact, it had nothing they really deviated away from the comic in that aspect. And if you look at Shane, if they followed the comic, probably would have died in season 1 or early on in season 2. And it would have gone down a lot differently. He would have died, he would have been buried, and they would have gone about their way. And then sometime in season 3 during the prison scene, Rick would have come back, dug up Shane, and realized, hey, Shane's a zombie, gotta kill him, something's not right here. I guess maybe you don't have to be bitten in order to turn into a zombie. Maybe we're all infected with something. That's how they realize that there's an infection and maybe they're all infected. It didn't come down with they went to the CDC and Jenner whispered something in his ear and he had this big secret that he didn't reveal until the last episode of season 2. That didn't happen. That was all fabricated because what they did was, instead of following the comic, they dragged Shane's character on for as long as they possibly could. There came a point in time where I, as a comic fan, was just like, maybe they're not going to kill Shane off at all. Maybe he's just going to remain this monkey on Rick's back for the length of the series. Or maybe they're going to do this, Shane on one side, Rick on the other side, and then the team divides into who they want to follow. You know, it was one of these, like, you knew it was coming because he dies in the comic, but you're shocked yet because you get psyched into thinking that maybe they're going to go in a completely different direction and keep him alive. So yes, you are going to be spoiled if you read the comics on certain points, but they never cease to amaze us in the series. They don't follow the comic completely. It's what they call not being canon. If they were canon, it means they would follow exactly what the comic is, but when they're not canon, when something's not canon to a series, it means that it is something that deviates away from the original product, which is the comic book. For example, T-Dog would be considered a non-canon character because he does not appear in the comic. That goes for Daryl and Merle. Daryl and his brother Merle do not appear in the comic. They are series characters only. So we don't know what's going to happen with them in the future because their characters aren't in the comic. So the way you guys see it who don't read the comic is the way that we comic readers are going to see it play out too. We don't know. So yes, you should definitely get the comic. No, it's not going to completely spoil you. A lot of times it's going to guide you to where they're going. I mean, there will be some spoilers along the way, but I don't think it's going to be major spoilers. For example, when they panned out and we saw the prison, I knew the prison arc was coming up. I don't know what's going to happen in the prison arc because even by their own admission, they're going to deviate. So I don't know what they're going to do. They're going to surprise even me as someone who's read the prison arc. So I don't know. So yes, you might be spoiled in some ways, but in other ways, you're going to say, okay, this is what's coming up. And I read this in the comic. How is it going to be different? You know, and they're always going to find a way to surprise even those who are big fans of the comic book. So definitely read it. Even if you're not a comic fan, you're probably going to like this. So that's just my recommendation. Again, you can take it or leave it, but that's that. Now, another big question that I get asked is, who is the hooded dude in at the end of season 2 who saves Andrea and has those zombie pets? And one big thing that I have to bring up before I announce who it is, even though it's been announced a million times, a lot of people, even now, even though it's been announced, it's been over the Talking Dead, it's been over the internet, it's, you know, everyone's been talking about it. There are people who still think it's Merle. And I just want to say one thing. Merle is supposed to appear in the season 3. It's been confirmed. My personal belief, and I'm just saying this is my personal belief, I don't know this to be a fact because, again, Merle is not in the comic, so I have nothing except, you know, my own predictions to see, you know, if this is going to be true or not. But I believe Merle is going to be a henchman of the governor, and the governor is a really bad guy. I mean, he's a bad guy. He is one of the worst bad guys that a lot of people are going to encounter in the show. So, yeah, I really think he's going to appear with the governor. That being said, why people would think it would be Merle. For one thing, Andrea was in the group that ended up abandoning him on top of the mall, handcuffed, and they just took off without him and didn't try to find another way to get him out. So why would he stick his neck out to save her in the first place? And another thing, in order to escape the handcuff, he sawed off his own hand. He only has one hand. You know, so, and resources are kind of low right now. I mean, we're not talking about where there's doctors and prosthetics and, you know, they can make these hands that move and, you know, attach it to his limbs and fit it. We're talking, you know, the zombie apocalypse where resources are scarce and people are even more scarce. So he probably doesn't have a really great prosthetic if he has anything on the hand that's missing. And the hooded figure has a sword in one hand and has the zombie pet's chain in the other hand. So 2 hands, something that Merle doesn't have. And I think people kind of forgot about that a little bit. So no, it's not Merle. In fact, here's the big reveal. It's been revealed a million times, so it's not that big of a spoiler anymore, but for some people it still is. And they've been asking me like crazy. I keep getting private messages about this. It's a character named Michonne, and Michonne is from the comic book. In fact, she is a very popular character in the comic. And yes, I said she. Michonne is a woman, not a man. So it's not some dude in a cape. It is a chick in a cape. And the backstory of Michonne really quickly is she was a lawyer and a mother. She had 2 daughters from a previous marriage, and you know, she had gotten married, got divorced, had a boyfriend, and right before the zombie apocalypse happened, and what they believe, the backstory basically is the boyfriend becomes infected, he dies and becomes a zombie and kills her children because her children are not, they don't exist anymore. And she's in a neighbor's house and finds a sword, which is the only readily available weapon. She took fencing when she was younger, so she knows how to fence, and she, you know, uses that to defend herself, and that became her weapon of choice. The zombie pets that she carries with her is her ex-fiance, or boyfriend, who turned into a zombie. And I'm kind of unsure. I always thought that the other guy was his brother. Some say it was his best friend and not brother, but some say it was her best friend or her brother. We don't really know who he is in relation to her. We just know that he's somehow related to Michonne. And what she did was she chopped off their arms, chopped off their jaws, so that they wouldn't be a, they wouldn't attack her and they wouldn't, you know, try to kill her. And she doesn't keep them around for sentimental reasons, because she talks to the spirit of her ex-boyfriend, you know, or her boyfriend without, I mean, she doesn't think that they're the zombies. She thinks that the embodiment of who her boyfriend was lives around her more existentially. She actually keeps them as a way of moving around stealthily. She uses them as cover, so to speak, because zombies don't attack each other. Their hunger is for flesh of the living and for blood of the living, and they can kind of sense the blood and the flesh of a human, and they can kind of, they go by noise. Like if you shoot a gun, they'll all go towards the sound of the gun. So what she does is she uses them. They can smell the zombie flesh and the rotting flesh, and they can, you know, or somehow sense the flesh, that it's not like human flesh, like living flesh. And the noises that they make are also something that kind of covers her own noises, so people think that they're just zombies. And then they obviously don't see the zombies attacking the hooded figure, so they don't attack the hooded figure. So they're basically used as cover and camouflage. And as soon as she joins the group in the comics, she offs them pretty quickly, because again, she has no emotional ties to them, because she doesn't believe that the souls of her boyfriend and the other guy are there. She believes existentially that they're around her. So she's a very interesting character. She's a larger than life character. She is definitely a comic book character. And what I like about her, I do like the character quite a bit, is she causes a lot of trouble. The trouble that Shane caused when they kind of extended his character and, you know, let him live a little bit longer, and he was able to cause a little more trouble in the group. The trouble that he caused, she actually causes in the comic. In the comic, there's a character named Tyrese, I'm sorry. There's a character named Tyrese. He's an ex-football player, and he has a teenage daughter and her boyfriend along with him. And when they meet the group before the prison scene, he kind of falls in love with Carol, and he and Carol become a couple. And during the prison scene, after they meet Michonne, Michonne has a crush on Tyrese, and she wants Tyrese for herself, and so she causes trouble for him and Carol so that she can be Tyrese's main girl. And And that's when Carol kind of spirals out of control and things go bad for Carol after that. So she really stirs up a lot of trouble, and she kind of is a pivotal role for what happens to Carol in the comic. Again, if you want to hear about that, I could talk about that in another episode. Won't go into it now. But she is a very good character. She kind of does a lot of twists and turns that make the comic interesting. She's kind of like antagonizes people, but yet she's a good guy. And it's a very good character, but it's a very over-the-top character. Now, here's a little editorial on my part. The one thing that I hope the producers and the writers of The Walking Dead can do is find the fine line between Michonne the comic and Michonne the character in the series. Now, what happens is in a comic, you can get away with a lot. It could rain monkeys, like pink monkeys, and just rain pink monkeys down on the ground, and it can be acceptable because it's a comic. You can get away with a lot in a comic. I mean, you can have a zombie that still thinks it's a human and is walking around and fall in love with one of the main characters. It's a comic. You can get away with that. But in the series, they took the comic and they turned it into more of a realistic view of what would really happen in the world if there was a zombie apocalypse. I mean, yeah, it's kind of outlandish. It's a zombie apocalypse, but yet the people and the interactions and the interpersonal relationships and how the people kind of work through this world is more realistic. I mean, these are people that you can think of as your neighbors, your friends, your co-workers, your family. You can even see a bit of yourself in these characters. Like I said, it's more of a realistic look at an extreme situation, something, you know, and it kind of makes you think about yourself. Like, well, if I were there, how would I be? Because people become, like, they could be great people and then they turn into monsters because they're so intense on surviving, and their minds just totally change, and sometimes they even lose their minds. Or maybe somebody is always in trouble with the law or always getting in trouble with the parents and maybe not the best person, and then this turns them into the hero. This makes them say, hey, life is important and I want to help. You know, so it's kind of like, so like I said, it has this realism to it that makes you kind of feel like you're into the scene. And when you get into a comic like Michonne and you bring it into like someone that's real, it's like realism meets comic book world, it doesn't mesh very well. And my main worry is that they're going to bring Michonne into this realistic world and they're going to keep her this over-the-top comic book character, and it's going to kind of change the dynamic of that realism and turn it more comic bookish. And then we're going to get something that kind of is like Buffy the Vampire Slayer meets Supernatural meets True Blood meets zombies, instead of this like, hey, this is kind of like a realistic version of what would happen if this really did happen in our own world where the zombies kind of took over. So, and you know, that what my concern is, there's a lot of people that are fans of the show that don't read the comics and maybe don't really like comics and don't want to see it turn into a comic, a TV series that is starting to mimic the comic. They want to keep that realism, and it might turn fans off if Michonne is too over the top. And of course, people like Michonne, people who are comic fans like Michonne, and they don't want to see Michonne not be Michonne. So I think what they're going to have to do is find that fine line where they can keep Michonne without her being too much. And they picked a really great actress to play Michonne. And I just say, like, you know, it might be kind of shaky in the first couple episodes while they try to find her footing to kind of find that proper balance between Michonne and then way too much Michonne for this particular setting. So just give it a chance. Let them find their footing. I'm sure they can work it out. But I really do hope that that's what they do, that they find that footing. Because again, they can get away with a lot more in the comic than they can in the series, because they decided to take the series and do a realistic approach to it. And like, as you saw with the fans of Michonne, I'll put it this way, the fans of Michonne were excited when she came out with in her hood and the zombies and the sword. And those who don't really know Michonne because they don't read the comic were WTFing, and not in a good way. People are like, what the heck is with that samurai ninja, you know, dude? It's like, what is this? Looks like something that should be on like True Blood. This isn't something that looks like it should be here. It's so comic book, you know. So they got to kind of find a way to take that comic book element of who Michonne is and turn her into a realistic character, because they chose to go with the realism in the series. So they're going to have to find a way to take her and turn her into a realistic person instead of just a comic book character. So that was just my little thing on Michonne. But anyway, those are the two questions that I've been getting a lot lately about the comic book and about who that hooded dude was. Well, the hooded dude is Michonne, who's a chick, and pretty cool character. It's going to be a little bit different. So let me just give you a quick wrap up of the season. First half of the season, I liked. A lot of people didn't, because there wasn't many zombies and there wasn't a lot of killing and death and bloodbath and everything like that. But to tell you the honest truth, I really liked that interpersonal relationships and the character development, and we got to kind of see a little bit of Shane starting to lose it. And we saw a little bit of Rick starting to say, something's not right here, I'm the leader. And we got to see especially Daryl. Daryl was this character who was kind of, you know, standoffish. He was not really a member of the group. He was kind of like far aside from the group was here and he was over here way off the camera, actually. I mean, he was way over there. And slowly but surely they were starting to meet until he became an integral part of the group. Not only does he start to care about the people that he's with, but they actually care about him and they actually respect him. So it's to me, it was interesting on a psychological standpoint to see the character development. Second half of the season brought back a lot of the action, brought back a lot of the zombies, brought back a lot of the intensity people were missing. So it was really good. I think the best episode of the season, of course, and probably one of the better episodes of the entire series as a whole at this point, is definitely the season finale. It was very dramatic. It was very action-packed. It was very just intense. I mean, the zombies, the escape, and, you know, people getting separated and trying to find each other again. It was very intense, and it was a very good show. And I do want to say a few things. I want to salute Shane and the actor who plays Shane. He was a character that everyone loved to hate, and the actor did an amazing job in the role. And you know what? Even though I know Shane dies in the comic, I actually wished he would have lived longer in the series, because he was doing a really good job being an antagonist and being the bane in Rick's life. So I'm gonna miss you, and we're all gonna miss you, and wish you the best of luck in your future projects. Same to Dale. Love the actor who plays Dale. Love the character Dale. Gonna miss him in the prison. Dale died a little bit too quick. He had an integral part in the prison that I can talk about at another time, but it was something that was really great in the comic that they're not going to get to do with him now because they killed him off so quickly. But to the actor, I can't wait to see you in other projects. You were amazing, and I actually really loved the show too, or the character too. So to the little girl who played Sophia, you did a great job. Sorry to see that they ended up taking your character in a different direction than the comic. But at the same time, you did a really great job as a zombie, and you probably did better than a lot of the adults did. And my hat's off to you. You're going to have a nice long career in acting. And geez, who am I leaving out? Oh, I have to say the best scenes in the entire season that I have to say was Herschel's farm just burning, and there's millions and millions of zombies on his property, and he's just looking over his shoulder while he's riding in the car, and he just has this look on his face that just breaks everybody's hearts. And it was one of the best episodes of best scenes of the entire episode, and one of my favorite scenes really of the series so far, because it was very heartbreaking. I mean, he was on screen for like 5 seconds at best, and yet he conveyed all these emotions in his face for those short 5 seconds that just reached out to the entire audience, and I have to give him kudos for that. And I also love the ominous scene where they panned out and they showed the prison, and it was all dark and scary and intense, because that's what the prison arc is like. So I definitely think that was a really great episode, and I can't wait to see more. So again, if you guys want to talk a little bit more about The Walking Dead, you can friend me on Facebook, ask questions. If you want to know why I miss Dale, and why I wish Dale was going to be in the prison scene, you can ask me that. If you want to ask me what really happens to Carol when Michonne breaks up her and Tyrese and kind of steals Tyrese from her, go ahead and ask me that, and I can spoil you if you want to be spoiled. And anyway, if you want to just have anything that you think is a conversation point for The Walking Dead, Dead comic or the series, let me know. And maybe if you guys like this, I will do another one. And let me know if you like this and you want me to do another one too, so I don't waste my time doing another one if you end up not liking it. Anyway, hopefully I'll talk to you guys again soon. And The Walking Dead Season 1 is on DVD. Season 2 probably won't be too far behind. And the season finale, by the way, was earth-shattering records. I mean, it broke a lot of records here with the amount of people that watched. So congratulations to all of the cast, all of the crew, all of the zombies, and the writers and everybody that works on The Walking Dead, because you did a really great job. And I look forward to season 3.